All right, well, welcome back, Freight Nation. And today is going to be a great episode of the Freight Nation podcast, a podcast by Truckstop. And it's going to be a great one today because when I started in this industry in 1998, there was really only one group in the marketplace that really that over time built and continued to hold my respect in this marketplace in how they treated the truck driving public and truck drivers in general and how they represent this industry. And today I'm going to get a chance to talk to one of the legends of this organization and a guy that really represents our industry so kindly and so well and so intelligently, and he represents the heart of the American owner operator. And so, joining us today on Freight Nation, which I'm so excited about, is Mr. Lewie Pugh, the Executive Vice President of OOIDA and one of the greatest truckers America has. Lewie, thank you so much for joining me on Freight Nation today.
Well, that's quite the introduction. I don't know if I'm worthy of all that. I feel like Todd Spencer and Jim Johnson are more the legends than I am. I'm just the guy here. But hey,
Well, hey, someone's got to stand in the gap, and you're right about those two guys. They are two of the legends in this marketplace, and when what they represent. There's many people that have to carry the torch, and so I learned that really early working for Overdrive magazine. We used to compete with Landline magazine, but when I would talk to people in the marketplace about it, there was this respect for Landline because you guys weren't a media company; you were an association that represented the rights of the smallest operators out in the marketplace. And so that was what was unique. But so I'm excited today for you to be on Freight Nation, for you to tell your story. Because man, Freight Nation, you're gonna love Louie's story. I mean, the one thing you love about Louie is he is you're staring at what it is, man. He is exactly as he's advertised. And also, but he a part of Louie's responsibility, he grew up as a trucker and he's from Ohio, and he now represents our industry not just through OIDA, but also to the federal government and all across the board. We're going to get to that eventually, but the first most thing that's for me that's most important, Louis, is for you to tell your story. Louis and I have become better friends. We kind of knew each other for a long time, but since Truckstop became and OIDA become partners to help beneficially for the owner operator in this marketplace, he and I have become much better friends. And boy, have I tell you what, if you want to have a fun conversation, just find Louis Pugh at Mid America or some truck show or in DC. It is a great rock and roll kind of conversation. But Louis, so hey, look, first, what I want you to do is just start your story. Like when you were a young guy in Ohio, growing up a Buckeye from the Ohio State University, start about like what got you into the sort of this part of the world? Because I know you kind of grew up a little bit maybe on the farming and agriculture end, but talk a little bit about that and tell your story.
yeah, thanks, Brett. And again, I appreciate all the warm accolades. And I'm with Brett. If you see me, come talk to me. I talk to anybody. I love to talk to people. I love people. So 100%. I love to swap trucker stories.
There you go. Me too. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was born in southeastern Ohio, raised in Harrison County, Appalachia, right off the Ohio River. I mean, it was coal mining and trucking and a little and hillside farming is pretty much what we had. And of course, through time, the coal mining and all that stuff kind of got hit, and the mills and everything else through politics and all those fun things. But yeah, my dad was grew up on a farm. My dad was actually a blacksmith, shod horses through the summer, and in the winter would drive truck. And was a truck driver in the winter, and because shoeing horses was slow. But I tell everybody, and I know it sounds like such a cliche, but it is the truth. When I was about 5 years old, 5 years old, I think, Smokey and the Bandit came out.
Oh my gosh, that was my dad's favorite movie, Louis.
It's my favorite movie. Your dad's a smart guy. So my dad took me, and I remember we went and saw that movie. And from then on, I wanted to be a trucker. My mom has all these little books, like moms do of your childhood. And there's always a place like once a year you put your school picture on us and what you want to be. And of course, I had fireman and cowboy and farmer. And that changed throughout the time as growing, but it was always a trucker. Trucker was always in there. Always want to be a truck. Loved toy trucks, loved all that stuff. And then, of course, the BJ and the Bear came on.
Oh, you gotta love that. Yeah.
And then as time went on, my dad got a little older and shoeing horses got a little harder. And, his body wasn't what it once was. And he went trucking full time. My grandfather also drove milk truck. My other grandfather after World War II and stuff. He was out in Oregon for a little while, drove lumber truck and stuff for a little bit before coming back to Ohio. So the trucking's always been there. So when I got old enough, I drove truck on the farm. I started pulling a pickup truck and a horse trailer about 13, 14 years old. Drove farm machinery and all that stuff. And so learned those motor skills, I guess. And I mean, when I mowed the yard, I used to think I was driving a truck as a little kid, imagine all that stuff.
Got a visual of young Lewie Pugh with his hat on, thinking he's a truck driver. Oh,
I'm sure my mama's got pictures because I'd take my rack wagon I had when I was a kid and hook it to the back of my lawnmower, and that was my trailer, buddy. And I was hauling whatever I could haul. So I was but anyway, long story short, graduated high school, joined the United States Army. What did I do in the United States Army? I drove a truck. Uncle Sam tractor trailer. First was in a heavy haul unit. We hauled tanks and stuff with the big heads, and then I became a fuel line haul driver, hauled fuel, became lead driver, squad leaders throughout my Army career, active in the reserves.
thanks for your service, man.
Oh, no problem. It's just what we're supposed to do. No thing. But anyway, with that being said, by the time I was 21, I got into reserves, and on my 21st birthday, I went and took my CDL test. I was grandfathered because of the military training I had for the driving and all that stuff. So I just had to take the written, got my CDL, and about a week later, I was off to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Because when I started driving, you either drove an orange cab over when you were 21 and dumb and do nothing, or you drove kind of a yellowish brown cab over, I guess you would say JB Hunt colors are. So I decided to be a punk. I was a punkin egger.
What is a Punkenager? I don't know what that is.
Well, back in the day, when Snyder and JB Hunt was like, everybody made fun of the cones and the barrels. Those were Snyder eggs. So yeah, that's why. And of course they called our trucks pumpkin trucks. So
Oh, okay, that does make okay, I get it.
my dad and said, "You'll like this." I had my job right as soon as I had my license. I had my job at Snyder. So my 21st birthday, I get my CDL. Like that weekend, we had like a birthday party and some friends and stuff. Cause I turned 21, I guess. And my dad somewhere appropriated, one of those big highway barrels that they call Snyder eggs, and gave me that for my 21st birthday. Since I was going to work for Snyder.
Your dad's a jokester. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, my dad's pretty ornery too, just like me. So yeah. But with that being said, so yeah, I worked for them for about 9 months and left there. And it was kind of fun. It's kind of funny because I went from probably a company who, at least on the surface, tried to show they were the most compliant out there. And but then because that was when Snyder was 55 and all that kind of stuff back in the early 90s. And then I went to work for an owner operator, owned 5 trucks. He was leased to a carrier in Pennsylvania with a flatbed. And because that's what I wanted to do, was pull a flatbed. And it was that or haul cattle. I was going back and forth. So I went to work for Wolfie out of Hopedale, Ohio, Dave Tucker. And we were leased to a carrier called Kephart out in Pennsylvania, and we hauled steel and plastic pipe and all that stuff to the East Coast. And then we hauled garbage back to the Eastern Ohio, Central Pennsylvania, baled trash, some big square bales. And that wasn't probably, we were probably what they would consider outlaws of the road at the time. But, it was a good education. I worked for Wolfie. He was a good guy. Give me, and ran that job for about 6 or 8 months. And then I bought my first truck. I was 22 when I bought my first truck I bought my first truck. And this is funny too, because I buy this truck up at Fighter Freightliner in Youngstown, Ohio. I bought an old FLD 120. It was an old Eckmiller truck, and bought the truck. And I went and told Wolfie that, I gave him my 2-week notice and bought this truck. They financed me on a truck, but I can't get nobody to finance me on a damn trailer. And I'm planning to just go haul trash because do what I know. That's what I was doing. I was going to lease back to where we were working and haul steel and pipe and garbage and I knew them guys. We all ran together. We were all a rat pack, to say the least, to hauling that trash. And it was a fun job. It was the hardest job I ever had, but it was the most fun job I ever had. But I couldn't get nobody to finance me a trailer. And so I'm looking around. So there's Mass Trucking is in Millersburg, Ohio. They used to have all bull racks, and then they went into kind of bull racks and reefers, and now I think they're all refrigerated freight. But I went up to Mass Trucking because a buddy of mine worked there, and he said, "Well, you can pull their trailer with your truck." So I always wanted to haul cattle. So on my way up to Mast, I stopped at Triple R Trailer. At the time, it was Leader in New Philly, Ohio. Good friends of mine. They're good people. Love truckers. So just a little shout out for Triple R in New Philly. But anyway, I stopped there. My friend Roger worked there. Roger and I are pretty close, same age. Looked at a trailer, talked to Roger, the family. They're super good people. And he says, "I think I can get you financed." And I said, "Okay." So this is on Friday. I fill out all the papers. And he takes that. I go on up to Millersburg and I sit down and talk to Willie Mast. And he's telling me all about the bull rack. And, he says, "The only thing I'm worried," and this was the other little problem Louis had. I'm 22 years old with about a year and a half experience. Not a lot of insurance companies or people want to give me a job. That's another real problem. So he's like, "If I can get you insured, I'll hire you." And I said, "Okay." So nice man. So I fill out all the stuff for him. I went home and I told my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, I'm gonna whatever whoever calls me first, because she's like, "What if you get both?" That's was the what if you get both? I said, "Whoever calls me first wins." That's what I'm gonna do. Put it in God's hands, destiny, whatever you want to call it. I really want to go haul cattle, but if I get this flatbed, I know that job, I'm gonna go do that, whatever. So anyway, on Monday morning, about 10 o'clock, I get a call from Roger. "You've been approved." And it wasn't 5 minutes later, I get a call from Willie Mass saying, "Hey, you can go to work for me. You're my insurance. You check out, you're good to go." But like I said, I said, "I'm going with what was first." And so I signed on, I got started hauling trash for a little bit with my flatbed back and forth to the East Coast of New York City, and was pretty much a flatbedder from there on and for my entire career.
What brand of trailer?
I bought a Ravens, an old Ravens trailer at the time, and they were old TMC trailers that they'd gotten from back in the day. And and I'm trying to think, it escapes me because it was their heavier made trailer. But I bought that Ravens. I pulled it for about a year and a half, and then I had an East, and then from then I had Benson's the rest of the time, and I mainly bought Benson's. They were good trailers, but whatever Triple R trailer sold is what if whatever they would have sold is what I bought, because they were good people. And that's the one thing in this business that a lot of people miss, especially when you're starting out, is make connections with people that if you can, or get to know people. You need a good repair shop for your equipment, to buy equipment and parts and all that shit, and work with people and good people, and it'll pay you dividends. That's one of the biggest secrets to my success, I feel, was truck sales in Midvale, Ohio, the International Garage. If I had a problem that I couldn't repair myself, I could pick up that phone and Bruce would be like, "Get it in here now," or "Get it in here in the morning." They understood that as a small business trucker, I don't have a fleet of 1,000 out here that I can just park this one and get in another one. They understand I need my truck. So if you were an owner operator, you got preferential treatment there. And like I said, as far as trailers and parts and everything, the people at Triple R and Roger and those guys, they took good care of me. They understood it too, and were just good people. And if you have good people like that, behind the scenes working for you, it makes you successful. And I give all the credit to them. And there's a lot of other people we could talk all day that I could give credit to my success. It wasn't Lewie Pugh's a genius. It was Lewie Pugh was smart enough to work with good people and have good friends.
Yeah. So you're 22 hauling trash.
I'm hauling steel, mainly plastic pipe, but we had an account with this pipe place up in northwestern Pennsylvania, and mainly I was hauling plastic pipe. And the other thing we were doing was me and my buddy Hard Times, who's passed away now. We trucked together all the time.
Name was Hard Times.
His CB handle was Hard Times. Roger Salvey.
What was your CB handle?
Bum Steer.
Well, with Bum Steer?
Bum Steer. And that's the name of my truck. Yeah, it was Bum Steer Trucking. And now my farm I call Bum Steer Cattle
Yeah,
Company.
you got a hat. I've seen a hat that has Bum Steer on it.
Yeah, it's Bum Steer Cattle Company. That's my farm that I have now.
I love it.
So, like I said, it's been a fabulous ride. But my buddy Hard Times, I guess one of my big claim to fame, or I guess if you want to call it a claim to fame. But me and him were hauling the bridge decking into the Big Dig in Boston.
Oh, wow.
The bridge decking was made in Warren, Ohio, and we were running 3 rounds a week from Youngstown, Ohio, these are probably stories you're not supposed to tell, but everybody likes to get truck. We run 3 rounds a week from Warren, Ohio to Boston. And from Boston, we'd load crushed cars and down to Newark, New Jersey, unload our crushed cars, and then hop across the bridge over to Queens and load our garbage, or as we like to say, our produce. Take that East Coast produce back over to Ohio, up at our Youngstown.
I gotta write that one down. East Coast produce.
We drop our trash and then get another load and go back to Boston. So when I was young and single and just having a great time, good old time trucking.
Yeah, man. So how long did you truck before you transitioned into did you transition straight from trucking into representing OIDA, or did you have some other stops along the way?
No, I mean, I joined OIDA. The way I got to OIDA was I started trucking in 94. I joined OIDA in 1996.
You joined early in your career, yeah.
23, 20, I guess, something like that. A guy from Pennsylvania that I haul garbage with, Kenny Bell, he had 4 or 5 trucks of his own. His son-in-law was 007, worked for him. A good bunch of guys. Kenny had OIDA mud flaps on his truck.
Ah, the old mud flap.
And in fact, I almost went to work for Kenny when I quit on trash. Was going to go to work for Kenny. Now this is kind of funny how things work out, because didn't like Kephart that well, and I was going to go to work for Kenny because he was kind of doing the same thing, and I really like Kenny. But Kenny couldn't give me a job because he had OOIDA insurance, and he had to be 25 years old at the time to get insured through OOIDA, so he couldn't hire me. But he said, you ought to join this association, though. They are fighting. I joined OOIDA, even though they cost me a job, I guess you would say, or wasn't hired. I couldn't get hired where I wanted to go to work. But, everything happens for a reason. But I joined. And then in 2000, and I was just a member, like most people, really. I didn't really even call OOIDA. I enjoyed Landline Magazine, kind of kept me up on things and stuff like that. And then I, had real no involvement. And then in 2004, I mean, I got a letter about getting on the board and being nominated for the board.
You were still young though, 2004. You're only
I was 31 years old when I got on the board. I was 31 when I got on the board at OOIDA. And I don't, somebody said, and I don't know if it's true, but I've been told I'm the youngest person that ever got on the board here at OOIDA.
yeah. Hey, let's talk about that just for a second. So a trucker, one of your trusted friends. By the way, first off, Freight Nation, I hope you're paying attention to what Louie's talking about here. If he's emphasized anything, he's emphasized be connected to people in this industry because they can help you solve the problems, get you opportunity, and help you really enjoy trucking. I mean, Louie, I've said that since the beginning. I started in '98 in transportation. I've just said it since the beginning. It's about the relationship that we have with each other, and if we do that, it's just a whole lot more fun to be in trucking when you've got those relationships. I've been saying it since on the stage and on shows and doing interviews as far and wide as I can to owner operators. Get to know the people that you're going to get your freight from, whether it be a shipper, whether it be a broker, however you're doing business in this marketplace, because you'll find you'll have the better the relationship, the better rates, the better consistency you're going to get, the better profitability you're going to have so you can enjoy trucking. All right. So you're 31, you get invited to be on the board. And so what made you, first off, what made you joined at 23 because a good friend of yours that you trusted said you should be a part of this because this will help you. But there's obviously a bigger decision to be representing yourself and your business on the board. What made you want to, or what motivated you to become part of the board?
Mainly, I mean, it kind of goes back to the reason I joined, even though, like I said, they wouldn't insure me, as I was raised by, my parents and my grandparents were involved in things. A lot of people, of course, in agriculture seem to be involved in things. My grandfathers were on the school board, council, civic clubs, soil and water conservation, Farm Bureau, 4-H, all this kind of stuff. And I was always taught from a young age, you need to pay attention to what's going on in the world politically and all these things. And mainly, if you're not involved and you're not trying to do things to make things better, you really got no reason to complain. Or so that's sort of the way I was raised. So that's why I joined OOIDA in the first place. And the main reason I really enjoy into OOIDA, what really intrigued me about OOIDA and I liked about OOIDA, and I still stand by it to this day, what makes OOIDA difference is they were started by truckers. Jim was a trucker, Todd's a trucker, it was all truckers that started this association. And our board of directors that still guides us on our policies and stuff today are truckers. And so that's these are people that know what I'm going through. I guess that's why they can relate. That's what I looked at. So when the time came and I got this, I was like, yeah, I'd like to be a board member. I think that I have some knowledge and experience that probably other people don't. I've always been, just because of the nature of our industry, and I think it's changed maybe a little, but at the time I came in, I've always been like the new kid on the block. I was always the youngest one, you know, where I worked and everything. And, but I was good at it, I guess, knock on wood, not to brag, but I was successful. So I felt like I always got respect from the older people, and I could relate to the older people from, getting around my grandparents and I like older people, and I've always liked to hear older people's stories. Old people got the best stories, and I've always, I'm with that kid that can sit there and listen to old guys bullshit at the store all day. I loved it. My grandfather was that guy.
Where to get right.
So anyway, with that being said, and I guess now I'm becoming the old guy with stories.
Yeah, we're kind of the old we're getting to be the old guys now.
That's why, yeah, I'm going to run for the board. And I ran for the board in 2004. There was like 9 or 10 people running against this. And the way it works in OOIDA, you get elected and you become an alternate. Well, it just so happened they took 5 of the 9, I think, or 10, but I was number 6. But one of the 5 couldn't fulfill it or couldn't do it or just decided he didn't want to do it. So about 2 weeks before the meeting, I get a call and said, "Hey, you didn't win officially. You were the alternate of the alternates, I guess, for lack of better terms, and one person can't come. So now that's how I got here." So that was kind of a fluke.
That's super cool. Another thing, so one of the things I appreciate, Louis, about what you're saying, and Freight Nation, pay attention to this. You know, there's a lot that goes on in our industry. It's a giant. It's one of the largest industries in the world. And so sometimes you feel like you got no voice, you can't do anything. Well, that's not true. You can become part of OIDA, and you can become part of the board, and you can help shape, what goes on in DC, how owner operators can react to it, or how they can work within it. And so I love that story, Louis, about and the thing that really struck me was you said, "This is what my parents taught me to do. This is what my grandparents taught me to do," which was, hey, be involved. And so that's one thing that I think is just remarkable. And that's a story for all of us. Every trucker out there, hey man, find a way to get involved. What you do matters. You're a vital part of the American economy and a vital part of what the United States stands for. So you're on the board. So you're all bright and shiny pinned and you're ready to be on the board. You're gonna make a difference. And so what was it like being on the board, that first meeting and everything?
Well, my first meeting, I flew out after I died. I started driving, but I flew out here. And of course, I know nobody. I know no one. Young dumb kid. I fly out, and I'll never forget. Bill Rohde was one of our board members, longtime board member, older guy. He's passed away now. God bless him. But I remember Bill Rohde picks me up at the airport. Him and Ken Becker, which me and Ken are still friends to this day. We ride motorcycles together and stuff. He's from Texas, and Ken's wife Elizabeth. And I remember, of course, this is TSA and all this crazy shit wasn't going on, like it is now. And so they were standing at the gate at the old Kansas City airport. And for those who flew in there, you walk off the terminal ramp and out the front door, pretty much is the way it used to work. It was great. But I remember Rhodey had a sign. Of course, I don't know him, but he's holding a sign that said Lewie Pugh. And I'm coming down the ramp thing or whatever. And he looks over at Ken Becker and he says, "I think that's the guy. He looks like a truck driver." And it was pointing at me.
You probably felt like a bigwig, man, with somebody holding a sign, coming to pick you up.
Yeah, just a dumb hillbilly kid from southeastern Ohio. It's a big world. But anyway, with that being said, my first meeting, the first thing we do is the next day, everybody, we went to dinner that night and kind of got to know them guys a little bit. And then the next day, it's like, because now we bring people out here before, like the alternates, they come out before they're ever elected to kind of get a feel. But at this time, it's baptism by fire, and they bring you in. And I still remember they took me in the old boardroom, and Bob Essler at the time was our secretary. Bob was from Kansas originally, but lived in Detroit, heavy hauler, big old gruff trucker, and a bunch of other old truckers, and here's this young dumb kid, and they kind of put me through the paces and asked me a lot of questions, and they want to make sure you're just not not all hat and boots, I guess, for lack of better terms. And but it was fun, and I became great friends with a lot of those guys, and still friends, and a lot of past since I've been on the board. But what a bunch of fun guys and fun stories, and just guys who really love the industry. John Taylor, who's still with us, thank goodness. He'd started trucking when he was 13 and just hung up his steering wheel a couple years ago, like at 86 or 87 years old, and all this stuff. And Bob and just all them older guys that was here on the board, and Bill Rohde, good people, good friends, salt of the earth, and truckers, just what we think of truckers is that we grew up around and stuff like that.
Right. Well, that's exciting. So you're on the board, you're making a difference, you're still running your operation, you're still running your truck, and you're on the board. How long did you serve on the board and still run your truck before you became an official? And hold on, what got you to the point of like saying, okay, I'm gonna exit my trucking operation. I'm gonna go full time with OIDA. What conversation was had? What was going through your mind? Because that you become OOIDA's voice, and the members of OOIDA's, you become the voice in Washington.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of scary, isn't it?
I couldn't think of anybody better. That's so. So what transpired in that? And then to tell that story, and then I want to talk a little bit about what OOIDA is doing, and then we'll talk about some of the few of the topics, and then we'll wrap it up. But man, so yeah, so what got? And I say this because I want the Freight Nation watchers to hear like, okay, well, there's some point in your career when you move from one stage to the next, and you kind of, when is that? How do you know?
Well, I guess to back up a little bit to get to that, when I got on the board, our DC office was kind of up and coming. We had Rod, Rod. Well, and Rod was down there getting it off the ground, because before that, we Todd pretty much spent all the time in DC, and we had some hired people and stuff like that. But we'd hired Rod.
Yeah, Jim was still alive at this point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Jim. Yeah, Jim's been
Still
all
running,
through this.
still
Yeah.
running, no idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jim didn't pass away until I came in, until after I got here. So anyway, Rod's getting the DC office up and going and starting. He'd been here, I don't know, a couple years maybe before, but anyway, getting that built up. So my, you know, I Rod and I are pretty close, the same age, and became really good friends. And I mean, I can't say enough about Rod and his knowledge and his experience, especially with DC. And I still use him as a resource today, even though he hasn't been in DC for I think about 10 years. But Rod noticed, I guess, to maybe his credit, maybe not his credit, that I had much interest in government. I really enjoyed it. So he brought me to DC. The first time, I think, was in like 2005 or six. He asked me to come down, talked to some people about truck parking of all things, and about this issue with parking.
That was 2006.
Yeah, in
We're still
2006.
talking about truck parking.
And we're still talking about it. Yeah, but Rod brought me down for that. And so a lot of like I said, either the credit or the blame lies on Rod Knopfseger.
Maybe we should check whether or not he's sane or something. I'm not real
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. But anyway, Rod brought me down, and then Rod brought me down for some other things as time went on, And one thing it helped with them, for one, I lived close. I was only like 300 mile. And two, most of my trucking was to the East Coast. So I was in DC or Philly or these places. I mean, one time I remember I delivered in Philly and left my truck somewhere and rented a car and drove to DC for some meetings. So Rod kind of gave me the base experience and stuff like that, and kind of taught me out of the hill. And again, I'm a huge history nut. I love history.
Oh, yeah, DC. What a great place to be.
I love American history the most. So I understand. I know we all get wrapped up with all the crap that comes out of DC and all the bad things. but I still look at it. There's so much history there, and there's been so much good come out of that. No matter what,
I agree. 100%
we're in the
agree.
greatest nation in the
Love our
world,
government. Yeah.
and so I just thought it was cool. I get to go down and do this kind of thing, and we talk about more as we go on, but I still do. But so anyway, so I enjoyed it. So that's how that started. And so to get to where I am now, as I things progressed, I continued to truck. I'm coming out here to board meetings. I got put on our finance kind of business committee, and which is kind of a standing committee. You have to be elected by your peer board members. So I got put on that, which I was proud of that. And as Jim was having some health issues and getting older, I started asking questions of like, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? Some other people within this organization, well, like Rod, for example, we'd moved Rod out here to kind of take over the business, which was great, wonderful. And Angel Brunel and some other staff around here got promoted up. But my question was to Jim and them is, where's the trucker? All these people are great. Love them all. They're all very capable, way smarter people than I am, but there's no trucker. And that's what makes OOIDA different to me, and I think most people. And Rod will tell you that's what makes us different on Capitol Hill than the others. I can go up there. I live this. Okay, this lobbyist beside me from another trucking organization, you never. I've lived this.
Yeah. Well, it keeps you relevant. I mean, that's really the difference in that. It was around 2017 that you started looking at it becoming. So what made you want to leave the truck and say, "All right, look, that part of my business life is over. This is my net. This is my." Was it your passion to make a difference? Because look, the one thing I love about you is you express yourself very well. Right? Very honest and open, but very well. There's not a whole lot of people that wanna stand in front of, like, all these, you know, congressional muckety mucks and, deliver that message. So did you find like, "Hey, I really enjoyed this."
I do. And the way, I mean, honestly, I didn't look for this job. That's the thing here. Like you asked me how I did that. It wasn't a look. And I brought up these questions. I was kind of told, well, it's hard to find truckers, guys that are successful, they don't want to come in here. Do you want to sell your business and move halfway across America? And I said, I don't know. I don't think I'm probably the right guy. You guys know what you need, not me. So I'm not, I'm just asking where's the trucker. There's a lot of truckers smarter than me. So, but you know what you need. So about a month later, I got a phone call about the first part of into April, 1st of May. Actually, I think it was Rod called me and asked me if I would be willing to come out here, start in the compliance department, which is where our catch-all for all calls, members calling here with problems and issues, and we try to help them fix it. And if I would want to start there and see if I could, as I jokingly tell people, learn how to drive a desk. And as I tell people, after 7 years of being here, I'm still a much better truck driver than I am a desk driver. I was gonna say, so with that being said, it was a tough decision, and Rod called me, and then I talked to Jim, and I talked to Todd, and I finally told him, like I said, it's the end of April, 1st of May. I said, you guys have got to give me till I said, I'm going to Rolling Thunder on my motorcycle Memorial Day weekend. I go there every year. And I said, when I get back on Monday night, I will call you Tuesday and give you a decision because this is a huge, huge thing. I've got a successful trucking business. I've got great accounts. I'm happy in life. My home's paid for. My equipment's paid for. I mean, trucking was really good to me, really good. So when I was at Rolling Thunder, we were down there, and I was talking to my friends that was with me at Rolling Thunder and Jill. And, I said, I come to Rolling Thunder because people who didn't make it home from wars need a voice. There's people, God forbid, maybe still prisoners or whatever. They need a voice. That's why I come to this every year. I take my Memorial Day and I come here. And when I was married, that's when my wedding anniversary was. And I would skip my wedding anniversary to come to Rolling Thunder. So that's probably why I'm not still married. But with that being that and some other things. But anyway, and so I said, trucking's been good to me. It's been the love of my life. And if I can go make a difference or make trucking a little bit better for other people, that's what I want to do. And I'm gonna at least try. I'm gonna at least go try. I don't know. So to be clear, when I came here, the only difference between when Todd came in the office, Jim told him the only way to give him the job, he had to sell his truck. And because what happened was some other guys that come in the office and they lasted about a month and then they went back to driving their truck. And then Todd ended up selling his trailer to buy the typesetting machine at Landline. There's a whole nother great story for you. I mean, Todd.
That'll be the next episode of Freight Nation. We'll talk about, oh, I,
But Louis kept his truck. Not only did I keep my truck, I kept my truck for a year and a half, and I was leased to Landstar when I came to OOIDA. I didn't cancel my lease for like 4 or 5 months. I continued to pay my insurance. I told Landstar I was having some personal issues and just I paid my insurance stuff I had to pay there. I didn't even put my because I left my family, my friends. I've never lived in town in my life. I rented a house. I'm now living in the suburbs in a split level house with a little picket fence. And, I'm out of my world and going in and answering the phones. But thankfully, Todd and Rod and Angel and some others around this place were very patient, very understanding. This was very, very hard for me. I miss driving truck every day. I miss my family, my friends, still to this day. But I mean, as time moved on, I was able to buy a house, get out in the country. I bought a little small farm, got a few cows and play around. But to have my me, but you know, the thing that people don't realize, and I don't think any trucker will realize, the thing that I missed the most was kind of well, the thing I missed the most was the camaraderie of my fellow drivers. But I guess the second thing was the solitude of it. Because the good thing about trucking, if you don't want to be bothered, you can shut your CB off, shut your cell phone, and you can zone into your own world, listen to an audiobook, whatever. When you come to an office with 285 people, you don't have that. And I learned a lot that there's no HR in trucking, but buddy, there's HR in an office building.
I love it. All right, so we got about 5 minutes left, and so I just want to make sure we get to the part where you started pivoting into being the sort of the voice for the OIDA membership and the owner operators out there in DC. So let's just sort of talk about that, and then because that to me is what a way that you've worked through OIDA. I realize that you've given back to this industry that you love, that has given you so much that really since you were a boy, 13 years old.
I'm the most, as far as I'm concerned, Brent, in a lot of ways, I'm the most blessed person in the world because trucking has afforded me and allowed me to do things that anybody can only dream of. And I can't believe it's real here because I'm a college dropout with a vocational school education from Appalachia. And, look where I've gotten to. And again, it's not because of me. It's because of the people around me, and I appreciate that.
And I can totally understand our life experience is life experience, but you have a PhD in transportation and trucking. And so you can speak, you are an expert at that. And I think that most truckers, and I would tell everybody watching from Freight Nation, every OIDA member, every Truckstop customer, I'd say you're an expert in transportation. And so all that other stuff doesn't matter. What you want to be is focused. You want to be an expert at something. And so that to me, Louis, when I talk to you about this industry, oh my goodness, such deep water. So let's talk about DC and you kind of get into that.
So, I mean, that was sort of the plan when I came here in the first place, but I went to a few meetings and then in 20, and I was working in compliance, became the manager in compliance. And then I started here in June. And that's the other crazy thing. I told them on the day after Memorial Day, and they're like, when do you want me to start? And they're like, can you be here by June 19th? So I had like 2 weeks to get all my stuff packed and move halfway across America. But hey, we did it. But with that being said, Jim passed away the first part of 2018.
I remember.
And yes, and sad time for OOIDA, sad time for trucking. Jim passed away, and so in April, I think was the board meeting. Todd was elected to the vice president role. Todd was at the time the executive vice president, and our board took enough faith and trust in me, and they voted me as executive vice president. So, and it's the board too. I can't not give them a lot of credit too. They trusted me and put the trust of the association and my leadership and Todd's. I mean, Todd was a no-brainer and still is, but everybody took a chance. Everybody, and like I said, a lot of patience because there was some growing pains on both sides for them and for a lot for me and some for both. They weren't used to having a guy fresh off the road coming in here complaining about things that we probably should be doing. And, they didn't always want to hear that. And I didn't always want to hear what they had to say either, but we got it all worked out. But anyway, my main thing around here was and job is membership and the advocacy part. And that honestly is my two favorite things about the job. The day-to-day work, I hate it for the most part. I'm not going to lie. But when I get to go to truck shows and be out here talking to members, that's my element. I love it. And when I go to DC, you're right. It's hard. I am who I am. I ain't forgot where I come from. I never will. And like I started to say or talked about earlier, when I go to DC and I talk to lawmakers or FMCSA or all these things, I walk through those buildings up there on the Capitol Hill. It touches me in a special place because I think, as a history nut, of all the great world decisions that's been made by very smart, intelligent, capable people who saved our world multiple times over in wars and different things. And here's Lewie Pugh. And this is why America's great. This is why our country is great. Some kid, like I said, with a vocational school education who hated school and dropped out of college is able to go in there and sit in Congress or the Senate and testify and talk about trucking and tell them how it really is. And, I guess I'd never even, that's what people, Joe, I said, my girlfriend, you get nervous. I said, no. I said, they put their pants on the same way I do, you know? I said, and there's 3 or 4 people in Congress that know trucking. The rest of them don't know crap about it. And that's what I tell my members. Don't be afraid to talk to your lawmakers. You're the expert. They're not. They only know what their freaking staff tells them.
They need your input on that. Louis, we're going to have Lewie Pugh part 2 on this. I'll tell you what. And here's why I say this, because I'm really glad that you went and told the whole story on how you got there, because I hope the Freight Nation watchers and any OOIDA member that's listening to this and any Truckstop client that's listening to this, just listen to his story, which is know that you matter, know that your voice matters, know that you have a responsibility, not just to your business, but to our industry to make it better. And I love your heart. I love the idea of how you got to where you were, that you felt like a calling that "Now, this is something I'm supposed to do," because you can't do it any other way. And so I absolutely love it. By the way, I experienced the same thing when I got to go up on the hill when I got into logistics in 2013 with Truckstop and got to go talk to representatives and talk to senators and stuff. And I experienced the exact same thing. I was like, people go, "Aren't you like intimidated?" I go, "No, this is the most fascinating thing to know that I, as an individual, this." And I look, I'm just a middle class redneck from Center Point, Alabama. Okay. I'm no different. All right. The fact that I could do the same thing and be a part of that is exciting and humbling and scary all at once. But boy, is it fun. And so, Louis, thank you so much for coming on Freight Nation. Tell your story. First, thank you for letting Truckstop be a part and a partnership with OIDA, because your heart for the owner operator, your heart for making this industry better is the same as Truckstop. It's the same as Brent Hutto's. And so, man, thank you so much for doing that.
And that's the thing. And, thank you, Brett. You've become a good friend and I enjoy your conversation. I enjoy bantering back and forth with you and stuff. That's what real friends do. But, just like our partnership, and I said this earlier, trucking isn't rocket science. But if you want to be successful, especially in what we're seeing today with the fraud and all these things, I know it's easy to get down. But like I said again, it's relationships and working with people and you can trust. And that's why we became, and as you well know, becoming our partner was a long drawn out. We made you go through, run the gamut.
It's a long dating process. I get it.
And you got lots of hard questions and we didn't let up on you, but you got there because, being part of OIDA and being our team, a part of us, it means something. But again, the drivers out there, people, truckers out there, people, you know, I did a story last month in Landline, just a editorial about the Brotherhood of Trucking, and I was surprised when they posted it on social because it's in the print magazine. But I was surprised the amount of truckers who are kind of slamming, there's no brotherhood, there's none of that anymore. We're in a very bad time, and I'm gonna get on my soapbox. We're in a very bad time in our country's history just because there's so much division and so much stuff, and some of it's warranted and some of it's not. But what we need to focus on in trucking and as a nation, but in trucking especially, let's look at what we got in common with each other instead of what's dividing us. And let's take these common things and join together, because the way we move things and make our industry better is by working together, and dividing and tearing each other down is what the people who don't want us to be successful want us to do. So, remember your fellow trucker, cut them some slack out there. Everybody has a bad day. Not everybody does things right all the time. And again, surround yourself with people and be thankful for the time you have on earth, because it ain't a long time. And we saw what happened with that airplane accident. In a split second, it can all be over.
You're not kidding, man. Well,
So, you
gratitude.
know, and most importantly, I can't say this enough. Thank you, truckers. Thank you for the ones that are members of OOIDA, but thanks to all truckers. And please join OOIDA if you're not a member. If you watch this and you made it this far, you call it. If you're not a member or you're a renewing member, you call my membership department, tell them you watch this, and you'll get a membership for $10 off at $35 a year instead of $45 for the year. So call our membership, say you watch this, and we get you a $10 discount too. But mostly, thank you for everything you do, truckers. You keep this country moving. You're one of the most important cogs in the wheel, and we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, well, Truckstop agrees. You couldn't said it better, man. Louie, thanks again for coming on Freight Nation. You're a treasure, man, and I appreciate our friendship too. So, but thank you so much for being on. And hey, Freight Nation, that's a wrap, man, for this one. Man, Louie and I are going to have another episode where we're going to talk about some topical things, because they got their finger on the pulse, and so does he. So, all right, so Freight Nation, thanks again for joining us. I know this was a benefit to you. What an incredible story about the heart of a trucker, Lewie Pugh, man. So again, Freight Nation, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to work hard, to be kind, and to stay humble. We'll catch you next time, Freight Nation.
On behalf of the Truckstop team, thanks for listening to this episode of Freight Nation. To find out more about the show, head to truckstop.com/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until then, keep on trucking and exploring the open roads with Freight Nation, a trucking podcast.